Alright, so welcome back to my channel, you guys. I do have the new Benefit Hoola bronzer in the shade Toasted. Y'all, I have always wanted to try this bronzer out, and they never had it in my shade, of course. They only had like Hoola and Hoola Lights, and of course, those won't show up on my skin. So when I saw this was coming out, y'all, like literally, I freaked out and I knew I was gonna buy it because the shade just looks so chocolatey and whatnot, and I just feel like it's gonna work on my skin tone. And in person, it looks very deep, you guys. Like it looks very like dark, so hopefully it's not too pigmented. But at the same time, I'm so excited because I don't know, like I feel like they should have been done this, of course, but the fact that they still went ahead and did it, I'm really happy and I'm so excited to try it out. So you guys want to go ahead and see what this looks like on my skin, then go ahead and keep on watching. I went ahead and applied some foundation and primer on my skin. I did use the Cover FX Power Play foundation in the shade G100. This is like my favorite foundation in the whole entire world. I just like the way it looks on my skin. I feel like it's very like good for oily skin. So for concealer, I'm going to use my Cover FX Power Play concealer in the shade ND2. I always pair these two together because of course they're made, you know, for each other, but they just look really good on the skin when I put them together. So let me apply some underneath the eyes. And I'm going to do this part really quickly because I know you guys came for the bronzer portion of this video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the skin. And then I'm taking my beauty blender, I'm just pouncing this into my skin. And also, I know a lot of people are asking me to do a video on this hair, or I should have filmed it. It was my first time doing it, so I didn't want to film it because honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. But I promise you next time I will, because I love how these turned out and a lot of people want to see how I did it. So I promise y'all, next time I'll film it. And to set my under eyes, I'm taking my Huda Beauty Easy Bake Powder in the shade Kunafa. And I'm not baking today, you guys. I don't feel the need to. I'm just going to press the powder into my skin. And I usually don't press the powder into my skin. I usually bake, but for today, y'all, I'm just going to work, so I really don't need to be like, you know, beads. So this will have to do for now. But I do get a little bit oily when I do this method, when I just press into my skin, whereas when I bake, I don't get as oily. That's the only difference that I notice. And to set my whole entire face, I'm taking my Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Powder in the shade Honey. I haven't used this in a while, but I use my Charlotte Tilbury powder, which I also do love. But with this controls my oil really well, especially because I'm not baking today. I really need this powder. So what I do is I take some powder onto the brush and I kind of just like swivel it onto my skin. And I also press into the skin at the same time. So I swivel and press. And with this powder, you don't need a lot because it is kind of heavy. But at the same time, it controls my oils really well. Alright, so moving on to the fun part, I do have the Hoola bronzer, of course, and I got it in the shade Toasted. This was $30, which I feel like is not as bad because when it comes to high-end bronzers, they're usually around that price. And the one thing I do want to mention, I was kind of nervous for the packaging because I didn't know if my bronzer brush was going to fit in here, but I used the e.l.f. complexion brush and it fits perfectly in here, so I'm really happy about that because I was low-key nervous. But it did go ahead and come out with two shades, which was Caramel and Toasted. And Caramel I saw in person, but that looked a little bit too light for my skin tone, whereas Toasted just looks absolutely perfect. So I'm excited to go ahead and try this out. I really do hope this is not too red on my skin. When it comes to bronzers, I love a more neutral brown bronzer. Red bronzers look a little bit too muddy on my skin, and I really don't like that. But I don't know, I feel like this will work on my skin. So let me go ahead and use my brush and tap a little bit of this. It looks very pigmented because y'all can see all of that in my brush already. So let me tap this out really nicely and let's see what it looks like. So first impressions, it feels really nice on the skin. Like it's not tugging at my skin at all. It's a very nice pigmented bronzer. But as I'm applying the bronzer, I can tell it has a little bit of red in it, which is fine. Like it doesn't look too red on my skin. It's a very nice like red, because y'all know there's some reds where you can work with and some reds you know you can't work with at all. But this is a little bit different. I think it looks really good so far. And also, for some reason, I love that like bronzed forehead look. Like, I don't know if y'all know what I mean, but I bring my bronzer all the way down here because I love a very dark bronzer on the forehead and then on the cheekbones. I just think it looks really good. So everyone has their preference, but for me, I really love it that way. But I'm going to set my face with my Urban Decay All Night and Makeup Setting Spray just to make sure every powder is settled onto the skin. So what do you guys think so far? I think the bronzer looks really good on my skin. Like, I don't think it looks too red at all. It's a very nice, like, bronzer. It does have some red in there. I will say, I'm not going to lie about that. But on the skin, it gives more of, like, a brown bronzer look, if that makes any sense. I hope y'all know what I mean. But what I'm going to do is finish up the rest of my face off camera, and I'll be back to show you guys some comparisons because I do have a lot of bronzers in my collection. So I want to show you guys what it looks like compared to the Hoola bronzer. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back with some comparisons, and I do have 3 high-end bronzers that I always use. And the first one is a NARS Jenna Contour Blush. And I also have the Anastasia blush in the shade, I keep saying blush, I mean bronzer, in the shade Mahogany, and also the Bobbi Brown bronzer in the shade Deep. So I'm first going to swatch the Hoola bronzer on my skin so y'all can see what it looks like compared to the other bronzers. And this is what it looks like on my skin. This is a very good comparison because y'all can see the red undertones in there. But the first one I do want to compare it to is the Bobbi Brown bronzer in the shade Deep. Now when you first open this up, if I can get it open, this is what it looks like. And let me show you the Hoola bronzer next to it. Hoola bronzer. I'm looking struggling because of the packaging, but y'all can see this one looks a whole lot lighter, but it swatches deeper, so don't be fooled at all. So let me give y'all a swatch of the Bobbi Brown bronzer right beneath it. Now this bronzer, like I told you guys before, is a very nice neutral bronzer. It doesn't really have a lot of red in there. But let me show y'all what it looks like compared to the Hoola. So the Hoola one is on top right here, and this is the Bobbi Brown bronzer. I feel like the Hoola bronzer has more of a deep contour tone to it, whereas the Bobbi Brown bronzer has more of a red bronzy look to it. So it's all about preference and what you like in your bronzer. I feel like either way they both work on my skin, honestly, but this is what they look like next to each other. And like I told you guys, the Bobbi Brown bronzer looks like it's light, but on my skin it is very, very deep. So the next one's the Anastasia bronzer in the shade Mahogany, and this is what it looks like right next to the Hoola bronzer. These look very similar next to each other in person. On camera they look a little bit different. This looks a whole lot lighter, but in person they look very, very similar. So let me swatch the Anastasia bronzer on my skin. And with this bronzer, I feel like it has like a cool undertone to it. It definitely has a little bit of a gray undertone to it. So let me show y'all what it looks like. And on camera, hopefully y'all can see this, but it has that gray undertone. So if you're a little bit darker than me, it will look a lot ashy. On my skin, it's a very nice, like, neutral bronzer on me, but I know for some who are darker than me, it looks very gray on them. And it's a very good comparison. The Hoola bronzer is a lot deeper, whereas the Anastasia bronzer is a lot lighter. And last but not least is my NARS Jenna Contour Blush, and they call it a blush, but honestly it's a bronzer to me. And then this is what it looks like compared to the Hoola bronzer. They also look very, very similar, if y'all can tell. I'm almost like done with this one right here, but they look very, very similar. So let me give you a good swatch of this. And the NARS Jenna Contour Blush, this has a very nice red workable undertone to it because, like I told y'all before, some reds you can't work on your skin, but I feel like this is so beautiful on the skin. And you kind of have to build it up a little bit, so I'm kind of like packing it on my skin right now to show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so this is what it looks like on my skin compared to the Hoola bronzer. The Hoola bronzer is deep, y'all. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this dark, but this thing right here is really, really dark. So I think it's a great bronzer for women of color because I feel like it will work on a lot of skin tones. But the NARS Jenna Contour Blush has that red undertone to it. It's a very good bronzer on the skin. So I've compared all my collection of bronzers when it comes to high end, and I feel like they all look very similar, but they all have like different undertones to it. And the Hoola bronzer, of course, is the deepest one, which I'm really surprised by because I didn't think it would be this dark, but at the same time I'm very happy because I know it'll work in a lot of skin tones out there. So shout out to Benefit, you guys. Y'all really killed this. So I do hope you guys enjoyed my review on the Hoola Toasted Bronzer, and I'm just really happy this worked on my skin because I've always wanted to try it out and I never had my shade, and the fact that they came out with a good shade for darker skin tones, like, y'all, I'm really happy. And the way it blends on the skin, the way it looks on the skin is so natural and it's absolutely beautiful. So shout out to Benefit, you guys. Y'all really killed this. But before I do forget, I am announcing my winners of the giveaway on my Instagram today, and I just want to let you guys know that even if you don't win, it's totally fine. There will be so many opportunities out there to win. I will be doing a lot of giveaways, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe on your way out. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in my next one.